And bingo, bongo, bongo. Welcome back to the iGaming weekly news. Jake, great to see you again. How are you doing today?
Hey Pierre, yeah, I'm all good, thank you. Glad to be back on air with you.
Test, test, test.
We can hear you now, Pierre. There we go.
Test, test, test. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can
Oh,
hear
there
you.
we go. You can hear me now. Perfect. All right. Sorry. All right. Fantastic. So some little issues here to start off the live stream with, but good to hear it. So in some magical way, you started to hear me now. I don't know exactly how that happened, but great to be back here. And Jake, really excited to do this together with you today. We'll see. We might have a special guest with us here today as well, with Phil Pearson, who might be joining us here in a couple of minutes. Phil is currently at SBC Barcelona with questionable internet, so hopefully we'll be able to get him live here in a couple of minutes to talk about the main topic of today, which is, of course, the controversy regarding the Twitch updated community guidelines in regards to streaming here. But we have quite a lot of interesting things ahead of us. Twitch being the main story, of course, but we're going to talk about the interest rate hikes, interestingly, from a kind of macroeconomic perspective, and how that might affect the iGaming industry and the disposable income from our players. Are we going to see kind of a downturn in turnover from players? We're going to talk about that. And other news as well is that DAZN CEO Shay Segev is talking about perhaps not giving the sports betting solution as much love as has previously been predicted. Another story as well is FanDuel, which is has now targeted a 12% sports betting margin in US sports online, which would be interesting. It's a quite aggressive uptake from the kind of traditional Las Vegas books. And finally as well, our very good friend BP3, Bill Pasquale III, who is coming out strong to say that there is a snowball chance in hell for California Prop 27 online sports betting in California to be legalized later on in the year. But first of all, Dick, I mean, from your perspective here, the news of the week, what has stood out to you, except for the Twitch story here?
I wasn't expecting that little caveat on the end of that question, Pierre. I think the Twitch news is pretty much all anybody's been able to talk about since it broke. Obviously, major sort of repercussions for the industry, which we'll go into. But other than that, there was a Playtech trading update today for their first 6 months of the year. They've done pretty well actually, but they benefited a lot from kind of retail venues opening after COVID across Italy and in the UK. It's just an interesting business, Playtech. They've obviously, nearly been sold a couple of times now, but are ticking along independently at the moment. And there's, they're one of those few businesses remaining that are kind of half split between B2B and B2C. And I think shareholders want to see kind of those two things separated so that they can realise the full value. But I think the chairman said today they've got no plans to do that at present because both segments are performing quite nicely. So it's a wait and see in that situation, I think.
Absolutely. Interesting, Jake. And I think we can jump into the main topic of today then, of course, which is the updated Twitch community guidelines here that Twitch released a powerful statement here the other day where they are basically looking to ban casino streaming from unregulated, what they call unregulated casino operators. It's a little bit of a vague statement here, but we're gonna see if we can get the technology working on our side today, and if we can welcome Phil Pearson into the stream. And this fingers crossed now that the internet gods are with us. Let's see if we can get Phil live here.
Okay.
There we go. Oh wow, that's a very zoomed in picture of
Perfect.
Phil's. I love it. I love it. Phil, can you hear us? Can we hear you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear, but unfortunately, very low. We can hear you, the audio. We can see if we can increase the audio here in the background. Can we have a little step to say it? Can we say hey again? How's it going, Phil?
Hey, is that any better?
Yeah, it's slightly better. We can give it a try here for a little bit, Phil.
I
But
can shout
if you want
really,
to,
really loud.
yeah, that we can try. That we can try doing it as well. But we can hear you, but it's just a little bit lower than our volume. But let's give it a try here, Phil. Obviously, the news broke here with Twitch update the community guidelines the other day. What's your reaction and thoughts around this news? We know obviously you are very passionate about the streaming subject in general.
I mean, I think can only be good for what we do. Like the way the industry has gone for the past 3 or 4 years, basically becoming a black market Twitch, YouTube nightmare for regulators, responsible gambling. Now we actually have some action from the people who are meant to be monitoring this. It's going to be a lot safer for everybody, especially at-risk groups who are vulnerable to gambling, I think.
Absolutely. Do you see it as an like? How do you interpret this statement by Twitch? Because they have been a little bit vague, I suppose, what they constitute with unregulated gambling sites. Do you think there will be a blanket ban against online gambling in general, or do you think they'll still allow casino streaming to some extent?
I think they've heard of some rumors of regulators going to making change against Twitch and YouTube marketing. I think they're trying to preempt any potential bans or fines or anything like that by putting some vague blocking in place. But I think they will get a bit more serious once they see that probably the UKGC and others will start to implement bans on this kind of thing. I think it's a preemptive move before something happens.
All right, fair enough. And there are some questionable streamers that are that have been kind of sponsored by Stake. Obviously, it's paying them, and they are accused for being kind of fake money streamers. Do you think what's next for them now? Do you think, like this kind of cuts off an arm and a leg here for these streamers? Say Rothstein, for example, and other streamers. What do they do now?
No, I had a little bit of inside information on this, but apart from the obvious dual integrations for game providers, so the fees are lower. What they are planning, I believe, is their own streaming part of their website because they are so big. I believe they're going to be launching some kind of mini Stake version of Twitch. So I would expect that you would see a lot of people going to like a black market carousel-based Twitch gambling streaming service coming up soon.
All right, so like a dark internet, dark side of the internet type Twitch
like
service where anything goes.
Silk Road
Yes.
Twitch. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. 8chan, but for casino gambling streaming, essentially. Yes. I mean, the question is like, will the liquidity follow? Because there's been discussions in the past if some of the major streamers would kind of start their own platform and so on and so forth. The question is if the liquidity will follow them, because there's a reason why Twitch is so big. There's a reason why YouTube is YouTube. This is the go-to place, not just to see a specific streamer, but this is where you find new streamers and you discover up and coming streamers, let's say. So the question for me is like, will they just churn off most of their liquidity if they go on their own?
Yeah, I think that they'll churn a lot of it. It's going to be very hard to get new viewers coming from the gaming background, coming from accidental clicks or anything like that. Plus, they're going to lose out on the money that you get from having bots and various other things that boost the followers and boost the view count. So I think they're going to really struggle now that their primary source of income has gone. And I kind of really hope that YouTube makes a similar standard, sticks with age gating and sticks with everything they're trying to do. Because keeping everything off YouTube, which is far more vulnerable for at-risk groups is very, very important, I think.
Yeah. There's been this argument from the Twitch communities, especially the streamers that are targeting, that generally have a target audience of underage streamers. There's what's his name, XQC, Aiden Ross, and others that have been doing casino streaming at the same time as their target audience and their community is predominantly underage. And the question has been, should the slot category be age restricted? Like, do you think that would be a solution to many of the issues that slot streaming face?
No, you should. It should have been done to begin with. If you have to prove, I mean, we have to prove KYC, ID, proof of address to play on a casino. To access the games in a pub in the UK, you need to be over 18. To access the content, you should also be over 18. Twitch can implement any ID checker in the world that fits sense. The streamers can pay for it out of their whatever the sponsorship money they get is, and then it's basically all of their streamers will be ID checked and KY checked, and they will be over 18. And then you can even then target gambling ads at them because it's allowed. It's what we do. But the fact that, I mean, Trainwreck and XQC have over 30% of people under 18 is what makes it. It's not just terrific. It's literally, it's predatory in a way. I think what they do is predatorize on people who are at risk just to make money. And I would go on the record to say that's just disgusting. And Twitch needs to do something about it, and themselves should, though they just have problems. I mean, I really want to swear at them, but it's a family show, this one, so I'm not going to.
It's we have some underage people watching the show as well, Phil. So we'll stay family friendly today. Yes.
very PG-13.
Exactly. Jake, from your end, what's your thoughts on this news so far, and also any questions here for Phil when we have the luxury of having an industry?
Yeah, I think there's so many different conversations to unpack, really. That's the first I've heard, Phil, is where you've said that Stake might look to kind of implement its own version of a kind of no limits streaming platform. And I think while it will obviously be very difficult for them to generate a kind of organic audience, because, you know, a lot of the influencers, they started out in gaming, right? Video gaming, and then they found gambling kind of by and large by accident, and so did their viewers. So it's going to be a lot more niche and a lot more specific. But I think a big part of the attraction is that it is basically no limits gambling, right? It's kind of high octane, ridiculous stakes that most people can't afford, and I think that's why they get so many viewers. It's kind of like, looking at a car crash, you want to look away, but you kind of want to keep one eye on it at the same time. And obviously there's definite integrity issues around that with where this money is coming from. But I think if they're the only ones that end up doing that, be it internally, then I think they're still going to get quite a lot of viewers, because that's what a lot of the audience has basically turned up for in the first place.
Yeah, plus the players that they've got already and the players on the site, there are a lot of volume, kind of, I would say, at-risk people that fall under the RG spectrum somewhere. And because it's Curacao, because it's crypto, because they just don't RG check or do anything with those players, these people will be the ones who will then redeposit, start converting money to crypto, and then start playing in that way. I think it's good if it gets taken off mainstream Twitch, but I think without it becoming an age-gated community thing, we're always going to have a problem that we're seen as targeting minors and targeting things like that, and it's something where we don't need to be. I mean, it's 2022. I can probably find out someone's name, address, and phone number within 10 seconds. It's not that hard for a company to think we're going to be better than the regulation here and protect youth and protect the people that we are. Basically, it's our duty to protect them under the license.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges, is because there is no kind of, know your customer technology. You can come up with these 4 high-profile companies and ban them, but how do you then implement those rules for the rest of the casino sector? There's also going to be hundreds of other replica sites, right, that come out of the woodwork now and try to do the same thing to fill that gap. I don't know. what their processes are going to be, but they're going to have to keep a seriously close eye on it. Obviously, we need to wait for the full kind of gambling policy that they've said will be published soon. But they've just named those 4 websites and then said we may identify others as we move forward. Well, how are they going to do that? How are they going to do it well as well?
Yeah, and Twitch doesn't make that much money. They ran at a loss for a long time. So if you're starting up a streaming where you need massive amounts of data to stream, especially these slots, which are high quality, they're moving parts. There's nothing still. It's a complex thing to stream, and it's going to cost anyone that tries to do it quite a lot of money to be able to stream like that. So I don't see this being a profitable venture just to have like a gambling related community streaming base. It does deserve to be part of the wider audience, like on YouTube. Obviously we watch your videos on YouTube, you can watch streamers, you watch Casino Grounds, but it's edited and created in a way that's designed for 18 plus. And I think that needs to be primary focus that not just we need to work on, but the community at large, like YouTube, like Twitch, if they fix that, the whole problem goes away.
Yeah. I want to play a video today and see if the technology again is on our side here today. But one of the biggest, if not the biggest, casino streamer, at least on the European side, is the very controversial streamer of Rothstein. And Rothstein has been criticized for being a fake money streamer. I don't know, Phil, if you want to chime in on this. What's your thoughts, first of all, on Rothstein? Is he a fake money streamer? Is he a legitimate streamer?
The only thing, I've only met the guy twice. The first time was at a party and he was drunk, so I'm not going to say anything. The second time was at Sigma, and someone gave him a free merchandise eye patch, like a protector. He looked at it, turned around, and threw it back at the woman who gave it him. So as far as I'm concerned, he's an absolute dick. And yes, he would 100%.
It's a family show here. Come on.
Streamer. Oh, sorry, he's an absolute idiot. And you can edit. And he, in my opinion, is 100% not streaming for real money, especially because you compare where they live to how much they appear to be betting and gambling, and it doesn't add up.
Yep. And I think the controversy surrounding Rothstein and the image that he has created around himself has certainly, you're not the only one who have this feeling towards Rothstein. And so when this announcement came out yesterday, Rothstein live in the stream during that moment, and he reacted to these news as they happen in the stream. And we're going to see if, I can see myself lagging a bit in the stream, but we're going to see if I can play this clip, and basically we can hear his reaction here. Let's see if this works for us. Okay, let's see. So I share my screen. All right.
Jurisdictions, okay, that provide sufficient consumer protection. These sites, oh my god. Oh my, rest in peace. Oh my god, wait, let me just write a... Oh my god. So where does that lead us now? Till when? 8th of October. So how long is that? 18th of October. Oh my god. Where does that leave us? Holy fuck.
Yeah, we can stop it there.
Friendly.
That's not fair. Well, it was not our stream, so. But yes, I mean, here we can see essentially that this is a man who is realizing that his world has just crashed, essentially. The opportunity to stream and to take money from stake is taken away from Rothstein, and obviously the concept of him playing these very high stakes spins on a day-to-day level is not going to be possible anymore, seemingly, if Twitch is going to be able to implement this new policy in a correct way. And he is not alone here, obviously. Like the livelihood and the concept that these streamers have been able to build an audience might be taken away from them, essentially. And so streaming community has definitely taken this seriously. This new policy, you can say that for sure. So yeah, the question is then, where does that leave us?
As in you guys.
Leave us. Where does it leave us? Where does it? Just to quote Rushdin, what happens now?
What? I mean, for them, I mean, here's the thing: if what they're doing is legitimate, and they started to age check their players, and they actually showed that the money they were playing is real, I would honestly feel quite sorry for them, because they're providing entertainment. They are decent to watch, but because it's so hyped up and so fake and so, I mean, you randomly see people whose last job on LinkedIn before going on stream was a customer service agent at a casino, and then they are a casino streamer for 2 million balance at the casino they used to work at, and say it's real money. Something there just doesn't. It's not. It's clearly fake. But where does it leave them? I guess there's going to be a massive hunt to try and find the next new streaming platform, or for one of the major streaming casinos like Rubet to invest. I mean, they're worth $1.2 billion. They have enough money to invest in something. I'm sorry about the noise.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you so much, Phil. Even though with a little bit technical difficulties here, we're still able to get some really interesting comments from you here. And I know that you're at Specific Barcelona today. It's only a 2-day conference. We're heading towards the end of the day. So head back to your stand, make some business, and we'll follow up with you next week at iGaming Next.
Yeah, we will do even more business there.
Thanks, Phil.
Very good. Thank you so much, Phil.
Cheers.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, great insights from Phil there. And just to add a little bit context here as well, Jake, the question, like probably what triggered the response from Twitch the other day was the fact that there's a very famous streamer called Sliker who came out a couple of days ago or a week ago, essentially that he had lost about $200,000 through basically casino play, and this is money that he had basically scammed from his own followers and from his fellow moderators and fellow streamers, where he basically was borrowing money from his own followings, from his own fans, with different various excuses. But in reality, he then deposited these to a casino site and lost most of it essentially. And this triggered a massive response within the Twitch community that basically demanded that Twitch was going to remove the casino streaming category from its site basically. And a couple of days later, the statement then came from Twitch, and I'm going to put that on screen here. The statement is very vague today, so we still don't know exactly how this policy is going to look like. But they are essentially saying that from October 18th, they are looking to prohibit streaming of gambling sites that include slots, roulette, or dice games that aren't licensed in either the US or other jurisdictions that provide sufficient consumer protection. Sites including Stake.com, Rollbit, Duelbit, and Rubet. And the interesting part here is they're obviously singling out, especially Stake, which is a regulated operator in the UK. And so the question is the question is exactly how this policy will look like, how they choose the operators which will not be allowed to be promoted on Twitch. And it's like Tim Heath, our dear friend, he was questioning this as like, is this actually something they legally can enforce with consumer protection rights, considering that other operators will potentially have a pretty big advantage here, and potentially some operators will take legal action against Twitch in order to be reinstated here. So it will be interesting to see exactly how this policy will look like. How does Twitch choose the operators that are not allowed to stream casino play on Twitch?
Yeah, exactly, and that's going to be a nightmare for them to work out. But I think you've hit the nail on the head there with the It's Sliker story. I think the central issue for me is whether these streams encourage harmful gambling behavior, and if the streams have encouraged an actual streamer to basically scam friends and other streamers out of 200,000, you have to think how that's impacting ordinary viewers, right? And whether they're behaving in the same way. And while this is a streamer, like it's still just a normal person who's now suffering with a gambling addiction, who has to go to rehab, and his life's been upended by all of this. And you wonder how many people that don't make it onto the screen might be suffering with the same sort of thing as a result of these streams that encourage kind of risky behavior and a chance to chase the dream, without the kind of consumer protection processes we see from sort of stricter licensed markets.
We have another insight here, basically some LinkedIn comments. Christy Kluna, who is the CEO of LiveSpins, which essentially tries to marry live streaming, casino live streaming, directly integrated with an operator. He wrote a larger post here earlier that he thinks that obviously he's a big proponent of live spins, and he feels this is a good opportunity for these type of services to now start flourishing. And here is the kind of the discussion, because Chris in his post on LinkedIn mentions that all casino streaming will be banned. And so Neil Luke here, he's questioning this, and he's asking, he's under the impression that the ban only affects unlicensed or gray market offerings. Whereas Chris replies to this comment that the exact wording is in the Twitch statement is licensed in US or other jurisdictions that provides sufficient consumer protection. The key here will be what do they deem as sufficient consumer protection? All sites are licensed in Curacao. And Alessandro Giantini of Swissborg, he is replying to that comment saying that basically if you play on a casino license in a national jurisdiction, in a locally regulated market, like a .fr, .it, .es, .de, and so on, you're fine. But if you play on a generic .com site licensed in Curacao or Malta, he's mentioning as well, you will be banned. He's saying it's very clear. And so it could be that the policy targets essentially .com operators and enables the locally regulated jurisdictions. But I think this is still a guessing game. We are still waiting for Twitch to actually reveal the actual policy here. Right now, we don't know exactly, but it's some quite interesting insights that we just don't know how widely impacted this policy update will be.
Yeah, and you mentioned obviously that Stake is licensed in the UK, but that's not the Stake as we know it or as we understand it. And it's certainly not the same Stake business that's on these, that's been part of these Twitch streams for several years now. It's kind of a white label, out of the box solution that they can kind of stick their brand over the top of. There's not even any cryptocurrency gambling allowed on the platform, and it's basically so that they can market their .com product via high profile marketing channels like the Premier League. A UK license allows them to do that, but on the front of Everton shirts it's stake.com, right? It's not stake.co.uk, and there's a reason for that.
Interesting. But then you can still ask, is Stake able to get around this ban by hosting UK streamers on stake.co.uk, for example? Is that going to be allowed since they are regulated?
Yeah, but then
in that
what?
section?
But then the stakes are going to be capped at £20, whatever it's going to be when the gambling review comes in, and it's none of it's going to be with crypto. So what, they're going to get about 100 viewers probably per stream.
Exactly.
That's what they've got to work out.
That's fair enough. That's a good point. It's also if there would be casino streaming from stake.co.uk, the audience will learn all about affordability checks and all about the hassles of gambling in the UK. Essentially, that's a stream that I would watch. That would be
it would discourage sign-ups instead of encouraging. I think if they did it that way.
Negative fuel. Great stuff, and very interesting, and a topic that surely we will follow up on as we get more context and more information about this news, for sure.
Definitely.
I want to move on here, Jake, to the next story, and I wanted to just talk a little bit about not necessarily a topic that is has been in the news in the last week, at least not from an iGaming perspective, but certainly something that will affect the iGaming industry, which is the recent interest rate hikes. And so the American Feds here just yesterday came out with a statement to increase the interest rates from 2.5 to 3.25%, and they have been signaling a 4.4% interest rate at the end of the year. And this is not going to come down until perhaps late 2024. And just to, I am certainly not an economist and an expert in this subject, but essentially what the Feds are trying to do is to increase the interest rates in order to slow down the economy, which then in turn slows down the inflation, which obviously, as we all know and we all read in the news, is very high right now. Now, so essentially, for anyone who has a loan, for anyone who wants loan money, and so on and so forth, it gets a lot more expensive. And in Sweden, where I'm from, so a couple of days ago, this was also in the news that the Swedish will also increase the interest rate from 0.75 to 1.75%. Now, the Swedes are pretty much the highest loaned people in the world. Swedish people love to loan. It's like the saying in the last 10 years. It's like loaning is the new saving. That has been the culture in Sweden in recent time. And that has worked perfectly well when loaning is for free, when the interest rates have been zero. Now the problem is for a middle class family who has bought a house and also have loan money to buy the newest car, and also bought a boat on the side, and then they want to have a second car, even though they are just a middle income family. Whenever there is an interest rate hike, it can severely affect the economy of that family. And so in Sweden, the interest rate so far has only been increased to 1.75%, because if you increase the interest rates to kind of where the level should be in the 3 to 4% area, basically the country will collapse more or less. And if you couple that with the fact that Swedish people generally live in big houses, they are expensive to heat. Sweden is a cold country in winter, and electricity bills are expected to be in the thousands of euro per month in winter. You can then see a problem emerging that where is the disposable income in the families come winter when you have the interest rates and the electricity bills essentially. And our industry, the iGaming industry, is very essential that our customers have enough disposable income in order to use our entertainment products. And so something that I think the industry should really think about now, and investors in the industry and so forth, is how will this interest rates and how will the increase in energy prices affect the average player spend. I spoke to one CEO the other day who was saying that they can already see the effects now of the players. The average session is as long as before, but they spend less money. And we haven't even seen the impact yet that these interest rates hikes and the electricity prices will have now that we are entering kind of fall and winter. From a UK perspective, Jake, what has the news been so far in the UK?
Yeah, I guess it's a similar situation in Sweden, where we've got basically a brand new kind of government sort of scratching around at the last minute, trying to work out how to deal with one of the biggest kind of crises of the last few years. But I think the new Prime Minister and her Chancellor are basically going to give their budget address tomorrow. They've done certain things to try and address the situation. They've scrapped like stamp duty tax, which is what you pay when you buy a house, and they're effectively getting rid of that for first-time buyers to try and encourage the property market to basically keep going, because obviously, like you said, interest rates are so high that getting a mortgage is going to be ludicrously expensive for the first few years at least. I think they've frozen corporate tax rates as well, so they're not going to go any higher for bookmakers. But yeah, you talked about a culture of borrowing. Obviously, in the UK and I think in other jurisdictions, a couple of years ago now, they enforced the law where you're not able to gamble, at least with credit cards or borrowed funds. So you can't kind of blur those two lines in the UK, which is sensible regulation really for the sector. You don't want people gambling with mounting debts, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And the hope was that we were gonna the Feds were gonna be able to bring the economy to a soft landing without unemployment going up, for example, or without people going bankrupt to a large extent. But the inflation numbers that came out from August was unfortunately not what the Feds had hoped for, and so this hope for a soft landing seems to be practically zero today. And the Feds are expecting that we have very dark times ahead of ourselves. And I was, and especially again from Swedish perspective, it is something I would keep an eye on. And I was watching a live stream in Sweden from the Swedish news when the news broke in Sweden that the interest rate was going from 0.75 to 1.75%. And the anchor of the news stream, she asked the experts, she asked her, so what's your number one advice? What should people think about now? And the expert said, don't panic. Okay. And when someone tells you, don't panic, that's when you know it's time to panic. Okay.
Yeah, so exactly.
So just to give some perspective here. So
yeah, and I think the Fed has been trying to kind of do exactly that, right? They've been trying to reduce panic, but they're not going to be able to smooth this over. They've tried to avoid talk of a recession for a while now, but it seems like it's pretty much inescapable with the end kind of not in sight. And I think this is the third consecutive hike in this range, right, that they've done, and each time obviously the stock market reacts negatively, and we've seen that kind of ricochet through to gambling stocks as well, particularly in the US. I think like if you look at them on a 1 week basis, I think there's probably 7 stocks that are down by double digits, led by GAN at 15.6%. Sport Radar, DraftKings, Genius, Caesars, Rush Street, all down over 12% as well, and they took a pretty major hit yesterday on the back of this Fed news as well, due to the kind of macro effect on that.
Yeah, absolutely. All stocks are down. The markets are down, and this is what the expected results are of these interest rate hikes. This is what the Fed wants, essentially. Like they don't want investments to continue. They want to slow down the economy, and this is the purpose. So when you see the stock market going down, this is a part of the slowdown in economy that needs to happen in order to get the inflation at bay, essentially. And so the effects are already clear, and it's already having that effect, obviously, that the Feds are looking for. Right, so those are just some things, and like I said, it will be very interesting to see, because the last time we were in recession in the late 2000s, the iGaming industry was performing exceptionally well during that time, and so the argument after that has been that the iGaming industry is recession-proof. But now we will see for real if the iGaming industry is recession-proof, because the counter argument was that in the late 2000s the industry was booming. So even if there was a slowdown, we didn't necessarily see that, because the industry was growing so quickly at that time. Yeah. That it potentially just grew a little bit slower than it otherwise would. But now the market is mature, and so now we will really see how a potential recession will affect the revenue of the operators in the iGaming industry. That is something I'm excited and scared to see, if I might be honest with you.
Yeah, no, definitely, it's a good point. There was one quote right at the bottom of a Guardian article this week that really caught my attention, and it was a cabinet minister of Liz Truss's new government speaking off the record, and they basically said, the Prime Minister's focus at the moment is to not impose any restrictions on businesses because it's already as tough a time as it's going to be. And that includes obviously, freezing or reducing tax rates, but also when it comes to the gambling review, there's been some quite intense rumours growing that she's basically not going to implement a lot of the points that we thought were basically bound to happen, because she doesn't want to put further red tape on a sector that's kind of already having to deal with multiple headwinds. So we still need to wait and see for concrete guidance on that, but that would be a right reversal in the narrative for the UK market.
Yeah, that's for sure. That would be interesting to see. We are still waiting on the new guidelines, right? Of the
still
white paper.
all these years later.
Yes, interesting. Well, great insights here, Jake, as well. I'm mindful that we only have another 10 minutes here today, and we have a couple of stories to still push through here today, Jake. But we can zoom in on one of them, and then perhaps we can mention the other two quickly. Which of the three stories would you like to zoom in on here as a bit of an extra today?
Why don't we do either DAZN or FanDuel? I think, so these are stories that our reporter Connor has come up with this week while being based in Barcelona. He's tuned into a lot of the panels and the content over there, and has fired out some good stories from some of the major speakers that are at SBC this week, which shows the benefits of having a reporter on the ground, obviously.
I think, Jake, why don't you go through the three stories quickly here? So it's essentially DAZN, who are potentially not looking to focus that much energy on sports betting. We have FanDuel that is targeting a 12% sports betting margin, and our dear friend BP3, Bill Pasquale 3, who is saying that there's a snowball chance in hell for California to legalize sports betting, online sports betting, in the election in November. I give a little bit more context here, Jake.
Yeah, definitely. You summarized them really nicely. But so DAZN, which is obviously a mega sports streaming business, pitches itself as the Netflix of sports. There's been a lot of talk from our industry in particular that they're going to kind of make a massive play in sports betting, and they're going to become this huge disruptive kind of behemoth in the sports betting space. And I think Shai Segev, who's the chief executive of DAZN, was quite eager to kind of temper some of those expectations at SBC this week. He made clear that his priority as CEO is the core streaming business, and that betting was very much secondary in terms of how they want to build up their future revenues. Obviously, he has amazing gambling expertise, having been the chief executive of Entain, and they put together a really intelligent, high-profile team of executives to lead their DAZN sports betting business. But what he was saying is that, if we get the streaming product right, hopefully betting will be a natural overlay to this over time. But if we've got subscribers willing to pay us £30 a month or whatever it may be to stream the biggest sporting events, then they don't need to be betting with us as well for it to be a revenue generating business model. So that is very much just one offshoot of what they're trying to achieve as a business, and he'll have a clear idea in his head of what his priorities are, because DAZN has been loss making for quite some time. And I think this year that the Russian billionaire who's bankrolled it all has basically said, we need to start seeing a return on my investment now. And I don't know whether they see betting as the easiest way to do that. It will certainly contribute and it will help drive up that bottom line, but it's not, it's not going to take over the core streaming business anytime soon.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic as well, because we have been talking so much about Shai Segev kind of bringing the all-star team from the iGaming industry over to DAZN, and the expectations have been, of course, that this will be that sports betting will be a core product for the growth of DAZN, essentially to generate more revenue. But Shai is saying that he is focusing 99% of his time on the media side of the business, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
What about the second story here, Jake, on FanDuel targeting a 12% sports betting margin?
Yeah, so these are comments from FanDuel's Senior Director of Product and Operations, Gareth Core. Really interesting. He was basically saying, when PASPA was repealed, the sports betting operators in the US kind of thought they would have been closer to a 3% margin, as is the case with the retail sports books in Vegas. But he's basically saying that they're targeting a 12% margin on sports betting, as that's obviously going to help them be profitable on a much quicker timeline, and will bring them sort of closer in line to the sports margins of the European sports books, certainly for online. But he was saying, another part of the reason why they want to drive the highest sports betting margin possible is because the proliferation of iGaming legislation, which is obviously a higher margin product in the US, has kind of stalled, and he doesn't see any states opening up to iGaming in 2023 or 2024 really. So maximizing your core sports betting product, which is live in a lot more states, is going to be a key priority for all US operators. And I think this whole conversation links perfectly onto the focus on micro betting that we're seeing in the US at the moment, and the launch of Better, but also companies like DraftKings really ploughing a lot of investment into micro betting markets. Is because these are much higher margin products than say your traditional one leg sports bets would be. So that's the route they're choosing to take as they chase profits to appease investors.
Absolutely, and just to kind of bring in the gambling experience into the sports betting product, I think it's something that the US operators are thinking a lot about. The trend in parlays as a great example of this, where you can kind of generate these like crazy parlays that is potentially 1,000 or 10,000x of your bets. It's not necessarily the 2x will team A or team B win, and you bet on the team that you like, and so on. It's more like a gambling experience, and I think this is what the operators are looking for now when they are realizing that it is going to be difficult to legalize online casino in that many more states, at least for the foreseeable future, basically.
Yeah, spot on.
Third point as well, speaking about the US, Jake, our friend BP3, Bill Pasquale III, had a comment here in regards to the California Prop 27, the election that is taking place here in less than 2 months in the state of California, to vote whether to legalize online sports betting or not. And Bill is being very clear to say that he thinks that there is a snowball chance in hell for this Prop 27 to actually pass. He does not think that we will see any online sports betting in the state of California anytime soon. Can you expand on this?
Yeah, exactly. A great quote from Bill, and it trademarked one of his sound bites, I think. But I don't know if anybody in the comments was at SBC or was at this panel, but I'm reliably informed by Connor that Bill was extra animated on this panel and was standing up and gesticulating wildly, and all sorts was going on. So yeah, I think he probably got a bit carried away. But yeah, he knows better than anybody what the situation is on the ground in California, and it's quite a negative one for Proposition 27, which is the one that DraftKings and BetMGM and FanDuel have ploughed $500 million into. Doesn't look like it's going to pass when it's on the ballot in October. And yeah, Bill's kind of been quite unwavering on that viewpoint for the last few months now, and I think it's polling at about 32% will vote yes to Proposition 27. So they've got about 45-50 days to try and change that. But yeah, I'm not particularly hopeful either, I don't think.
It doesn't seem very likely at this stage, and obviously they have a huge opposition in California, where the Democrats is opposing the bill, the Republicans are opposing the bill. For once, Democrats and Republicans are actually agreeing on something. That's not a good sign. Okay. And coupled obviously with the powerful tribes in the state of California, and many other organizations as well, makes it less likely for this bill to pass. we're gonna finish off today with a little bit of a shameless self-promotion, because that's what everyone loves, of course. And we are hosting the iGaming Next Valletta conference, which is our biggest event ever in next week. This is a content-driven, thought leadership-focused event that is going to host some of the biggest movers and shakers and industry leaders of our industry and beyond here in Valletta next week. And we have actually in the background the product manager of iGaming Next Valletta, Rory Credland, and I want to welcome him into the stream here to just give a little bit more context there. Hello, Rory. How are you doing?
Hello, everyone. Everyone good?
Yeah. So Rory, just let's use the last 2 minutes here to just hear from your words. Like, what's the preparations looking like? What can the audience expect from this event that is taking place next week? Tell us, please.
No pressure. Look, I think going to be some very interesting discussions. We've changed and swapped around the agenda somewhat to cater for what's being sort of discussed in the current marketplace, what's going on. Certainly with the streamer topic that you've very much covered in both the news and on site today. We're fortunate enough to have put that into the agenda. So I think that will turn out to be a very lively debate. I think across the whole board, I've been fortunate to sit in all of the prep calls for the speakers, and they're all very passionate about it. So I think overall we should be covering a lot of the topics that are of interest certainly at the moment, both on the main stage and, for the first time we're doing a lot of side tracks as well this year, so which go into a bit more depth, a bit more niche, I suppose. So it's going to be very interesting across the whole board, something for everyone in that case.
Brilliant. 2,500 delegates, almost double the size of last year. 7 tracks.
I think we got a bet.
We have an over under.
We are over under. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think I'm gonna win. That's okay.
Yeah, you will.
Let's see. But a final question to you, Rory, product manager of iGaming Next Valletta, the biggest event we've ever done in 6 days' time. How badly do you want a shot of tequila right now?
3 shots, thank you very much. No, yes, look, it's a great team effort. The whole team have pulled together across the whole board to get this off the ground from the start from last year. Last year was COVID times, or that word we don't talk about, but it was difficult to run in that instance. We're almost starting it all over again this time round. So it's been a great effort all round from everyone involved to ensure that we're going to have a great week of events actually. So we're not only just doing the content, we've got a lot of peripheral events taking place as well. So there's a lot of networking opportunity. I was just on the LinkedIn podcast with Katie, and she was asking me the same questions. But it's a festival of events. That's what we're hoping to achieve. So there's something for everyone, hopefully. So there's a lot of new stuff going on as well. So be sure to check it out.
I'm looking forward to see you, Rory. I'm looking forward to see you, Jake, next week as well, and the audience who will be joining us as well. We're looking at a great, fantastic audience, and the event is looking very, very positive this year. So I'm just going to try to enjoy it as much as I can. Right, Rory, we'll see who gets to take those 3 shots here in a week's time when the event finishes, and we can perhaps update the viewers on this as well in the next live stream as well. And on that note, I don't think we're going to be able to do this live stream next week because we will obviously be with hands full during the conference, but we will be live streaming the event as well. So for those of you who are not able to make it, you'll be able to enjoy the main stage and the topics from there next week as well. And with that, I think we can say thank you so much today to the audience, and thank you to you guys as well for joining, Rory and Jake, and also of course thank you to Playson and Simpler for making these live streams possible, and wish us good luck. We have a lot of work to do here in the last week. It's nice to take a little bit of a break to have this conversation today before we jump into the madness again, and we will see you on the other side, everyone. Thank you so much for today.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. See you next week, hopefully.